Hello and welcome to the Django DRF API Query Fundamentals course. My name is Xander. Now this tutorial is part of a whole course playlist available for free on YouTube. For deeper learning, the full course is available for purchase at Udemy. Find all of these resources and links in the video description. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for weekly promotions, discounts, and Udemy course giveaways. When designing a database, choosing the right data types is essential. The data type defines what kind of data can be stored in the column and how the database handles it. In this tutorial, we discuss three fundamental data types used in a database: strings, numbers, and booleans. If you head over to Google, type in Django model field reference, the top option should take you to this web page. Here, on the right-hand side, you can go ahead and inspect all the different types of field types that we can assign to fields in our Django models. The first data type that we're going to assign and create fields for are string fields. So here we want to store text data in fields. So the name and the slug, these are both string fields. So the terminology for this might change depending on the technology that you're using, so maybe varchar, character field. The first data type, strings, this is used to store text data. Now, in database terminology, you might see the name string, varchar, or character field, and that can all refer to the same data type. So in the Django documentation, we can go ahead and inspect the different field types. So the character field is used for a string, small to large size strings. And in this case, we are provided additional information as to the extra arguments that can be supplied with the character field, and one of them being the max length. And we utilize that to enforce at the database level a validation using max length validator. So simply put, we can define the maximum length of the string that we can pass into the field. Now, there are different types of fields for strings. A field which we can define the size of the characters that we can store in the field, and there will also be a field for a large amounts of text. So if you have, for example, a blog entry, for example, that would be a large amount of text. We would use a text field, and that would provide us a field where we could enter essentially an unlimited amount of text. So do look through the different data types that you can assign to ensure that you are using the correct data types for the type of data that you want to insert in the individual fields. Back to the code, we now have defined the first field, name. We've supplied the character field, or we are assigning the character field to this new field we have created, and we've passed in the max length. So we're setting the max length for this field to 50 characters. A very similar field to the character field is the slug field. We're going to use the slug field when we want to create a field which is going to hold a URL-friendly string. Like a character field, we can specify the max length, but what's important here is that it has a default length, if not supplied, of 50. So we can go ahead now and define the second field for the category, the slug field, and I provided a max length of 55. Now, if you'd like to practice that, you can go ahead and have a look at some of the other tables where we're using character fields or slug fields, and you can go ahead and define those within the Django model. I'm not going to do that at this point. We'll move ahead to the next data type, and then a little bit later on, I will just supply all the code, and you can either read through it or try to complete it yourself. So next up, we have numbers. Of course, there are different types of numbers. We have whole numbers, and we have numbers that have decimal places. In addition to the type of number, we can also try to ensure to select the correct field type for the size of number that we want to store. So here the big integer field is going to store a very large number, in comparison to, for example, the small integer field, which only stores up to 32,767, and that is plus and minus. Going back to the category table, we do have a level field, and I have determined that the small integer field would be appropriate for that field. In the promotion event, if you take a look at the ERD, we have a price reduction field, And again, the integer field might be appropriate there. Or in actual fact, a small integer field might also be appropriate depending on the value of the price reduction we want to set. Now, inside the product table, we have a price field. Now, price is referring to a value, in this case, British pounds and pence. So that is going to be a number which has a decimal place. So here I'm going to use the decimal field, and that's going to provide us the ability to define not only the maximum amount of digits we can supply, but also to how many decimal places we want to create numbers for. And then last of all, Boolean. So a Boolean is a true or false value. So here in Django, we are provided the Boolean field to define a field to the Boolean type. So for example, in the category table, we have an isActive field to help us determine whether the category is active, whether we should show it or not to the customer or use it within our application. And we can set the default there to true or false. If you take a look at the ERD diagram, there's a whole bunch of these fields within the table. So we'll add a few more so you can see them. So here in the product is digital, is active. Again, just a Boolean field, and you can set the default whether they should be set to true or false by default. Hopefully that gives you a snapshot of how to create fields and define the data types strings, numbers, and Booleans. Now, I haven't added all the fields in at this point, which correspond to the field types we have covered. I'll give you an opportunity to do that yourself and practice that. As we work through this module, we will finally end up with the final source code for all of our models. But let's move on to the next field type, which is time and date.